Good afternoon. On behalf of the School of Design and the Dean, gives us great pleasure to welcome Daan Roosegaarde to talk to us today. Daan is really an innovator, a person pushing many boundaries both in the field of interactive design, but also in terms of environmental design. Myself, as somebody who's dabbled in this field, I've been aware of Daan's work for many, many years. So I'm very excited to be able to see him talk about some of this work. Daan graduated as an artist, but then followed up his studies in, I guess, I'm not sure what your background was, art in, okay. He told me he was asked to leave from 2 art schools. He then went on to postgraduate schools at a place where I used to teach called the Berlag Institute, which is in Rotterdam. This specializes in architecture in the very broad definition of the term, but basically maybe encourages different kinds of practice. I think it's clear to me that Daan accepted that challenge and even further to really push some of the boundaries of what constitutes, let's say, public space, social experience within this or collective experience within this, especially in a country like the Netherlands, which is basically constructed maybe about 80% artificial landscape or man-made landscape. So perhaps it's quite appropriate that Daan, his earlier work, really was situated there, but nowadays he works not only in the Netherlands but all across the world, including Shanghai and many other places. I think also for us it's very interesting to see the possibilities of both interaction, but more than interaction, also in terms of biomimetic design, especially in terms of the broadening scope of ecological or environmental design and what can be possible with us, with this field. So I think I'd like to really warmly welcome Daan, and I'm looking forward very much to see what he has to say.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. It's always, thank you, good afternoon. Thanks for the invitation to share some ideas about the future of design, the future of architecture. It's always a bit weird for me to lecture at a university because both of my parents are teachers, but I was kicked out of fine art school twice. So I have this weird love-hate relationship with education. I cannot recommend it to be kicked out of art school, by the way, so don't do it. But we're not going to talk about that. Today I want to talk about this, landscapes of the future. What happens when technology jumps out of the computer screen? How can we use technology, creativity, to improve the world around us? And as maybe, as you said in the introduction, in the Netherlands, most of the Netherlands, we live below sea level. Yes? So without technology, without design, we would literally all die. But it's because of these beauties, these babies, that we don't drown. So here on the left you see the sea, and on the right is Amsterdam. This is the Afsluitdijk, 32 kilometer, built by hand in 1932. And on one hand it's very practical, very functional. It protects us against the floods, against the water. We fight with the water. We try to live with water. We try to find harmony. But on the other hand, it's a bit crazy. Because who in a sane mind lives below sea level? Who does that? If we would have been very practical as Dutchmen, we would have just moved to Germany, to a safe place. But we didn't. And we used our craftsmanship, our skills, to make our own home, our own habitat. I think that sort of explains a lot why I make the things I make, growing up, building my tree huts there. But even the Dutch, sometimes we forget. That's why we made waterlicht, what you see here. A combination of LEDs and lenses, which shows how high the water level would be if we stop. If we don't think about the future, if we don't invest in new ideas. And we started to flood these public spaces all around the world to show the importance of living with water.
Best wel spooky. Spacey. Ja.
Wat ik het gevoel dat ik erbij krijg is een beetje onderwaters. Dat je onder een laag zit.
Ja, best wel mooi, vind ik.
With the waves above us. And it's magnificent.
Ik weet natuurlijk dat we beneden zeeniveau zitten, maar ja, zoals je het zegt, zou dat niet zo fijn zijn als ik dit opeens over me heen ga voelen, nee.
$60,000 people showed up in one night. And some people got a bit scared. And they were like, is this our future world? And they left. So we really had people just leaving because they didn't like it that much. But most of them, I have to say, they liked it a lot. They were mesmerized. And they started to imagine as well, can we make floating cities to protect our future world? Or maybe can we generate energy from the changing in tide? So I think that's sort of the power of these kind of interventions, these kind of installations, that you make places like a university where people come together, are curious, working together, and think about how they want that the future looks like. I like that a lot personally, you know. In a way, I think we live in a world where we're rather defined by our future than our history. Technology is enabling things, the global challenges we live in. We're forced to think about what we want to. And politics is not going to do it. So we have to make things, we have to make proposals, how we want the future to look like. But it also, of course, starts from a tradition, from a craftsmanship, from a skill set. You remember these glow-in-the-dark little stars that you had on the ceiling when you were a boy or girl? Yes? Long time ago? Yes? I think I've been staring at them way too long when I was a 5-year-old. That would explain a lot, actually. But so they charge at daytime and they glow at night. It's light, pure light. No battery, no solar panel, no energy bill. What can we learn from that? So 3 years ago, we went back to the lab, making this material more durable, more light emitting, removing the poisonous radion in it, etc. And while we were sort of tweaking and testing with the industry, we got a request from this guy, Van Gogh, the Van Gogh Foundation, famous Dutch painter, who wanted to celebrate his 125th anniversary in the Netherlands. And they came to me like a client and asked, we want to cherish his history, but we don't want to make something in a museum with a sign, please do not touch. We want to activate. Can you make a place so that he feels more alive again? And I like that question a lot. So in a way, we started to connect these two worlds of our material research we were working on and the famous Starry Night, the Van Gogh painting. So this is how a creative process goes. Like this for 8 months, like yes. And this is what we made later on, 8 months later, a bicycle path through the area where actually Van Gogh lived and worked. So he walked these grounds in 1885, nearby Eindhoven. After that he went to France, made the famous Starry Night paintings. So it charges at daytime and glows at night up to 8 hours. And everybody can go there. If you visit the Netherlands, it's open for public, no ticket needed. You can experience your cycling through the Starry Night.
it's just like we're laying on a starry night.
And we launched this, and it was actually very interesting because suddenly a bicycle path became very, very famous. BBC, Reuters, CNN, CCTV, everybody sort of jumped onto it. And it was sort of a surprise a bit to us. Because before, when we talk about mobility and when we talk about innovation, everybody always focuses on the car. The car design that can be sexy and glamorous and billions of research and development money, that's no problem. But somehow when we talk about the roads, the infrastructure, almost nobody cares. It should be cheap, maintenance free, basta. We don't think about it. And suddenly working together with Heijmans, that's a large infrastructure company, building these sort of light emitting bicycle paths, it opened up a sort of like a new niche, a new space to experiment, to express. Children went into it. Sheikhs from Qatar, from Dubai started to call, how much for 10 kilometers, you know? It created a sort of new niche which was fascinating to us. But most importantly, it showed that public space and architecture is not just purely from a practical point of view providing safety or energy, but can also inspire and trigger imagination and trigger history, but in a new way. So I'm saying we, because of course, when you make stuff, you're always part of a sort of how do you say it? Of a network, of a sort of ecology of knowledge and things like that. So this is Rotterdam, you mentioned in your introduction, old harbor city, where a lot of industry left to China, to you actually. So a lot of jobs disappeared, the steel left, etc. And the big harbor cities like Hong Kong and Shanghai, so they had to change economy. Yes, they had to invest in new ideas to survive. It was very like a big pressing topic in the Netherlands. So the city decided that creativity is their new capital. And they invited a lot of young makers, architect, designers, to re-inhabit these industrial places. So you have, OMA is coming here. It's moving in here. You have MVRDV not so far away. Richard Hutte is over there. So there are a lot of designers and architects that you might know are inhabiting this place. And we, from a distance, saw this beauty. Actually, it was on the point of demolishment, 22 years abandoned, but we saved it, an old glass factory. So this is the Dream Factory in Rotterdam, where my team of designers, engineers, architects, intern, project managers work. A place where you can experiment, where you can learn, where you can make a mistake, where you can try, where you can prove. So it's a combination of an architecture and an art studio, 35 people, prototyping, a lot of prototyping, a lot of sketching, a lot of engineering. And this is where we make the things that I just showed you. And this is actually what drives us. So sometimes people think about art and design as something decorative, something, oh, it's like a nice to have. And I think that's wrong. That's a wrong assumption. I think creativity is our true capital. Like the city of Rotterdam realized. So World Economic Forum, you see there on the right on the top, is a very famous think tank in Geneva in Switzerland. And they interviewed a lot of smart, famous, interesting people all around the world, asking what are top 10 skills you and I need to become successful. And what is interesting in this top 10, for 2020 top 10 skills, is that it's not about money, or being really good in C++, or Arduino, or technology. Of course, these things are important, but look at this. Number 3, creativity. Number 2, critical thinking. Number 1, problem solving, complex problem solving. All the things a robot or a computer is like really bad at. And that's very interesting, that as you will, that's why you're in a good place here, in the university, that the creative and the critical thinking, these are skills a computer is not so good at. So we will make things, we will go to museum, not just because we think it's interesting, but because it triggers things in our brain that technology cannot. Yes. So this is in a way very hopeful, that yes, technology will take over a lot of jobs, like the garbage collection, the taxi driver, etc., etc. But that may be that we have our time back to do the human skills which are meaningful, the desire to make, the desire to create, the desire to explore. Rio in 2 months, so I'm really curious, yeah. So he spent his whole life dedicated for that, and so he discovered this perfect geometry in this tunnel system, this perfect logistics in a way. He also discovered that some tubes had polluted air and some tubes had clean air. So they also discovered that in a way waste did not exist. Waste for the one was always food for the other. So there's somehow these creatures found a harmony, a notion of a hybrid in a way. And also what I realized more and more traveling in Asia and India, anthills don't have traffic jams. It sounds a bit silly, but anthills don't have traffic jam. That's because every time they meet, they touch each other a bit, like, hey, to tell, hey, I'm this, I'm there, there's food, I'm clean, I'm danger, So they're always communicating. So it's sort of like traffic jams is something that nature doesn't understand. Why do we have traffic jams? It's a bit stupid. So suddenly, when we've looked at these movies for over 100 times, we're fascinated by it, we're inspired by it. What can we learn? But we're also a bit shocked by it. Because our cities, this is also a sort of city, our cities right now are the opposite. Our cities have become machines that are killing us. It's the reverse. Beijing, 3 years ago from my room, looking at REM, CCTV tower, good day, okay, life is okay. The birds and the cars and the people, life is okay in a dense urban city. And then on a Wednesday, a couple of days later, wow. Literally, I couldn't even see the other side of the street because of pollution. You know, the whole city, it was so polluted, I almost start to smoke again just to feel healthy. Like really, like, and like that was really, literally. And of course, it's not just Beijing, Delhi, Paris, London, my own town, Rotterdam. Our desire for progress, our desire for innovation, our desire for consumption create side effects that you and I never imagined, and it's sort of it pops up and we don't know what to do with it. And we all know that the real solution is green energy, electrical cars, more bicycles, etc., but it takes 10, 15 years. It takes quite long. So at this moment, looking from my window, I became inspired by Beijing smog. And that's how it started. And I was like, wow, okay, but in a way it's horrible, but it's also interesting that it becomes sort of physical. It becomes like a component. Maybe I can use it to design. If a painter has paint, maybe I have my smog particles. So I remember when I was a boy, long time ago, when I was playing with these plastic balloons, and I polished these plastic balloons with your hand, it becomes, guys, what happens? This is not a rhetorical question. What happens when you polish, come on, you know this. What happens when you polish a balloon with your hand? Static, yes, thank you very much. It becomes static electrified. It starts to attract your hair. I'm like, oh, 2 days later under the shower. That's sort of interesting. What if we would use that principle to literally build the largest smog vacuum cleaner in the world, which sucks up polluted air, cleans it, and then releases the clean air? A lot of people, so that we would create places where people can breathe clean air again. And we started this, and a lot of people said, it's not possible, it's not allowed, it already exists, blah, 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 blah. We ignored them. 1 year later, we built the first one. So it sucks up 30,000 cubic meter per hour, captures the PM2.5, PM10, the ultra-fine particle, and then releases the clean air. So we have parks which are 20 to 70% more clean than the rest of the city. It's really about the dream of clean air. And every week, or every month, it opens. And I'll tell you a bit later about that. We did the first one in Rotterdam. Then China's central government started to wake up. We placed it in different cities all around the world, supported by Dutch government. This is China Environmental Protection Bureau, the central government, United Nations, and this tall Dutch guy which talks a lot. Locals started to embrace it. And we could prove that placing a tower in public spaces, we could make parks which are 20 to 70% more clean than the rest of the city. And it's fascinating. They're calling it lovingly the clean air temple. And of course, one tower will never ever solve the whole problem for a city. Of course not. But I believe by creating a place where people can feel the difference, where you can experience the difference, where you can show the beauty of clean air, that's how you create change. Working together to improve the life of people. We did the scientific research from the Technical University of Eindhoven, which validates how it works and that it works, the airflow. And while we were building more of them and making these clean air parks all around the world, we learn. This is Beijing smog. I have it with me. I also have a Delhi smog, I have Krakow smog, I have Rotterdam smog, I have Paris smog. It's really weird. I have all these bags of incredibly disgusting stuff with me. So this is the stuff we were collecting from the urban skies when we were opening up the tower every now and then. Really disgusting. This is in your lungs right now. If you live next to a highway, it's the same as 17 cigarettes per day that you inhale. Also in Hong Kong, it's like, again, why do we accept that? We had buckets of this stuff standing in our studio. And on the Monday morning, we're like, we should do something with this. Because if we only focus on technology, people just get more lazy. They're like, oh, we just put that tower there and nobody cares. We fixed it. But we wanted to make it personal. 42%, 48% of this stuff is carbon. And of course, we knew that carbon under high pressure, you get, yes, very interesting, you get diamonds. So inspired by that, we started to compress it for 30 minutes and decided to make smog-free rings out of it. And so by sharing a ring, here you go, this is one of them, you donate 1,000 cubic meter of clean air to the city where the tower is in. This was not only aesthetics. Yeah, you can show it around. This was not only about beauty. Also, when we started this project, a lot of mayors all around the world were very interested, at the same time very hesitant. Because they were like, but if we invest in your project, everybody will know that we are a polluted city. And we're like, well, if you live downtown Delhi, I think you more or less already know. But still, they were very... So we had a budget problem, we had a money problem. Everybody wanted, but nobody wanted. You know, this is always the problem with new things. So we spent 1 year, our own time, money, energy on it. But yeah, you know, you cannot do that forever. So we were stuck. We were really stuck. So we had a big meeting with the project managers and the business developers. Like, shit, like, should we quit the project, or, you know, like should we rob old ladies on a Sunday evening? Like, what are we going to do? Like, all the different scenarios passed our thoughts. But then what we did is we thought, no, but this is true beauty. Beauty is not a Louis Vuitton bag or a Ferrari or an expensive watch. Beauty is clean air. So we put this online, a Kickstarter campaign, crowdfunding. And people started to order it because they wanted to be part of the solution, not just part of the problem. But more importantly, they started to prepay it. So the finance we made with these jewelry helped us to build the first tower. So that's really interesting. When you design something, it's also about thinking as a whole circle. How can you activate people? How can you engage people? But besides the money, the feedback from community, these are photos 2 months later that was sent to us. This is not actor, true couple from India, where he proposes to her with the smog-free ring to get married. That's like the one ring you don't want to lose. Like and she was really happy, and she said yes. So I like this photo a lot. This is like Monday morning, 8 a.m. You get these photos in your inbox. That's like a good day. These are like these little gifts you get when you do new things. It's always a bit scary. You never know if it's really going to work, but these are the little gifts you get. Prince Charles in the UK has the cufflinks. So we started to do this whole series. Suddenly we were designing jewelry. We had no idea how to do that. We thought it takes 2 weeks, and no, it took us 4 months. It's a very specific type of branch. But it was fascinating. So innovation is about technology, science, facts, but it's also about making it very personal, very, very intimate, very shareable. You need both to create impact. And we do workshop with students like you. New ideas pop up. This is in Tsinghua in Beijing and in Tongji, Shanghai as well, where I'm a visiting professor. New ideas pop up. These are smog-free bicycles. We're building them now. They suck up polluted air, clean it, and then release the clean air so you can cycle and not be polluted. It's interesting because when I was cycling 3 years ago in Shanghai, my Chinese friends were like, "Are you poor? Can you not pay for a taxi?" I'm like, no, I'm Dutch. I like cycling. Our prime minister cycles to the House of Parliament. But all my Chinese friends were like, "They're crazy. Why would you do that?" And that changed because of the OFO and the Mobike, the bike sharing companies. So we signed now an agreement with OFO, I think one of the largest 1.2 million bikes in Beijing region only. So we're going to upgrade their yellow bikes with the smog-free design, launching 1.2 million bikes which provide clean air for the people who cycle and for the city itself. So in the fight against the car, in the celebration of the bicycle, step by step improving life. Going back to the dike. So this is our Chinese wall. So this is maybe the best way to see it. So dikes, dams like this in the Netherlands are as holy as a croissant in Paris, or what's holy in Hong Kong? The yellow taxi, or okay, something. So normally you cannot touch, don't touch. But because of the rising sea level, it needs to be renovated. It needs to be made stronger. Otherwise, we're gonna die. So the Ministry of Infrastructure said, okay, we're gonna renovate it, but we also want to show the beauty of this beautiful Zen line in the middle of the river, of the sea. And so she came to me and said, "Daan, can you make something to enhance the beauty of this famous place?" And it was a real honor to work on it. So we started to look at the history, built by hand in 1932, rock by rock. It's like crazy. We tried to, one day in the studio, we tried to pull like these rocks for half a day. You're like exhausted. And they did it for several years, rock by rock by rock. And we started, from a design point of view, started to decide that we wouldn't add more objects, because we wanted to enhance this sort of nakedness, this sort of Zen type of feeling, which was already there. So we're not going to place bronze sculptures, etc. Actually, the first thing we did was removing a lot of benches and traffic signs which were not used anymore. And we started to look at what is already there. Well, this is already there. These are 60 floodgates. So they open and close the water barriers to let the water in and out. Designed by Daan Roosegaarde in 1932, actually the grandfather of Rem Koolhaas. And when they were built for the first time, they looked like temples, like beautiful, like Greek temples. But when we encountered them the first time 4 years ago, it was horrible. All the concrete was rotten, it was broken. It really looked really bad. So we said, okay, we're gonna renovate them, restore them, bring back the beauty. But at the same time, we wanted to make something which is about light, about energy, safety, green. But the problem with anything you do with lead or cables or wires in a harsh, brutal sea climate environment with a lot of rain, salt and wind, is that all the technology, it dies. It just dies within 1 year. So we started to think about how can we play with light? And of course there's already light present on a dike like this, which is the light of, guys, 10 points. To answer this question took us 4 months. So what light is already there? I'm not hearing you. Sunlight, yeah, that's good. Yeah, and what else? Sorry? Reflection from the sea, that's also a good one, yeah. And what even more? Yes, very good, lights of the car. Very good, yeah. So that took us 4 months to realize that, to ask ourselves that question and answer it. We're like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we take the blueprint of the architect, very famous, and we start to work with reflection. Reflection of the headlights of the car. going back to the factory, making the most light reflective material which is there, inspired by the butterfly wing. If you ever get lonely, depressed, annoying, lose purpose of life, yes, look at the wing of a butterfly. It's amazing. No, it's really, so this is not a pigment, so the red of my shirt disappears after 3 or 4 years. It deteriorates because of the UV. Butterfly wing, no. On the nano level, it developed this sort of mini structure where it reflects light and it absorbs light in such a way that the colors always remain vivid. Super smart, really super. Even it works in the rain, and so we looked a lot at the wings of butterfly. A lot of prototypes. This is our Minister of Infrastructure. You always drag the client into the story. We don't do computer renders anymore so much. We really build prototypes, mimicking the headlights of the car. And these were the first tests, where we started to highlight the essence of the architecture. So this is daytime. We started to renovate them. It's sort of like a gateway. You enter them. This is the way you enter the dike and you exit the dike. And this is launched 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. So this is the daytime. They look like temples again. And this is nighttime. Permanent. So if you ever visit the Netherlands, you can go there. Also no ticket needed. So these are the microprismas. So purely based on the headlights of the car. So no battery, no solar panel, no energy bill, no maintenance, no cleaning. And it was a very interesting way to, on one hand, celebrate the blueprint of the architect, the history, and at the same time making a statement about the future. Why do we have streetlights burning the whole night? Creating light pollution and using electricity. And what is also interesting, when there are no cars, there's no light. It sounds a bit silly, but light pollution is becoming a topic more and more in these big cities as well. And personally, I love it a lot that somehow you take this sort of history and you push it into the future. It's a combination. It can be both. And yes, life is like you're driving through Tron, through science fiction. So that's also not bad. Yeah. And because of these projects, right now it is Dutch policy by law that all the big highways in 2030 should be made energy neutral. That's now a government rule. So if you build a new highway, it is policy. Before 2030 you have to do it. So these are not just specials, one-off beautiful pieces also, I think, but they also set a new standard of energy, of lighting, of good governance in a way. So good design can also inspire government to make a new rule, to set a new standard. It's not just government investing in design, it's also reversed. Or here, these are energy harvesting kites. Old idea of Wubbel Ockels. This is one of the first Dutch astronauts who went to space, came back and said, okay, we should do everything different. We're messing up this planet, we should be sustainable. And he started to develop this whole series of designs and ideas to improve. And one of his ideas was this, energy harvesting kites, which flow high up in the sky and sort of push and pull on a cable. And there's like a base station, like a dynamo sort of on the ground, which generates power. The same like your bicycle can generate light. Yes? And he had the idea. And I was in the archive of the Ministry of Infrastructure doing my homework for the dike project. And he was there in a video on the dike saying how beautiful would it be to have these kites on the dike as a platform for innovation and creativity. But he died in 2014. Yes, never got a chance to realize it. So I was in the archive, I'm like, That's what we're going to do. We're going to take his idea, we're going to call his widow and the startup of TU Delft, the university, and we're going to make his idea come true. And we're going to add something of ourselves to it as well. So it's a smart kite. It can stay up in the air for weeks, maybe months, and it's connected via the ground via a cable. And here there's sort of a base station, a ground station. And because of the wind, it's always searching for the optimal wind. It pushes and pulls on the cable and generates power. And we decided to make this cable light emitting. This is now live in the Netherlands every night. So you have these beautiful sort of dancing lines of light. This is the ground station, pushing and pulling. Generating power. We can do live video from the kite. We can stream. And it was really great in a way to sort of make these sketches in the sky, which on the other hand produce electricity, 20 to 100 kilowatts, depending on the amount of wind. This is enough for 150, 200 households per hour. That's a lot. So energy is everywhere. All we have to do is harvest it. This was 2 years of work, many cold nights, and somehow every time we were on the dike, it rains and it's very cold. But you learn dealing with that. Developing the tech. Okay, this is the widow, Joos Okkels. So she came by many times and visited. She was really happy. The dream of her husband came true. That was really cool. So innovation is not always about future. It's also about history, learning it and dragging it into the world of today. And one of my secret missions is to bring this beauty to Hong Kong as a new green icon. Yes. Okay, final one. Ah yeah, what are we looking at? Water, yeah, okay. Yeah, what else? Yeah, it's difficult to guess. Glow in the dark? No, yeah, you're getting close. These are microorganisms, light-emitting microorganisms, 700 billion year old. One of the oldest microorganisms in the world. Crazy. And the beauty is, if you treat them well, they give light. The same like a firefly or jellyfish. It has luciferin. And I became fascinated with that. So I'm a diver. So I go diving at night, and you move your hand through the water, and you get this. The problem with these kind of things is that they're divas. They're horrible creatures. If it's 1 degree too warm, they're like, no, we're not doing anything. And if it's 1 degree too low, they're like, no, we're also not going to do anything. And besides being divas, they're also cowards. Because if one is diva, it sort of copy-pastes this behavior to the other specimen, and they also don't do anything. So they live in nature for 1 or 2 days. So we spent 2.5 years figuring out what they want. It was horrible. Now I'm laughing, but it was really horrible. And so we figured out what kind of food they like, which is B12 and a certain type of rhythm of light. They eat light, that's their food. Certain type of temperature, certain type of behavior, etc., etc. But we started to grow the most light-emitting algae place in the world and flooding historical monuments on this dike with this material, living material. So the space is dark, and the moment you touch them, they wake up and they give light. This is pure nature, eh? You can drink this. Okay, was really fascinating to sort of grow them, learn from them, creating this sort of experience. Hundreds of people go there every night. They stand in line, you know, it's cold and they just want to see it. And for me, when I was there, when we were working on it, it's also very humbling. It's hard to explain, but you're standing on top of them and you're in a way, you're like, these are our, if you believe in evolution theory, these are our ancestors, eh? This is the beginning of life, yes? But at the same time, it's our future. How can we bring back nature into our cities? Why do we have streetlights burning the whole night? What can we learn from nature to improve the world around us and find new harmony? I don't have all the answers, but somewhere, somehow, it lays here in these kind of projects in between, that we start to keep on making, keep on dreaming, keep on doing, and I think if we keep on pushing like that, there's still a whole world to be explored. All right, thank you. Yes. Okay. Guys, questions? Can we have some light? Questions? Oh yeah, and if you wanna, I'll show it here. If you wanna share, download, steal, copy, learn, whatever, it's all here, yeah? Oh yeah, now they're silent. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, please. Yeah.
How do you select project, clients, and people to join your studio?
Sorry, how do I?
Select
clients and projects. How do I select? Yeah, it's funny because I learned you sort of, you have to say no many times to get a really good yes, eh? Because there's not a lack of money in this world or technology, but sometimes there's a lack of imagination, or quite often there's a lack of imagination, and there's a question of, there's a lack of leadership to try new things. Eh? And so you have to sort of create an ecosystem where these people come together, so the client, the engineers, me, the team, and you create a sort of setting where people are pushed, but also trust each other, more or less. And from that, these kind of things grow. So I think it's very important that it's public, or public accessible, that it's not about confirming the status quo, but trying to rediscover or question reality, coming up with new proposals. And it should also, you should have the feeling that you can ping pong with them. Sometimes projects are like bowling. So when there's a difference between, you know the difference between ping pong and bowling. So when you go bowling, you have a big ball, and it's so beautiful. It's like heavy, and you polish it, and it's shiny, and then you throw it into a corner, and then you hit something, or not, you don't know. For me, that's very old school. What I want is a ping pong. It's like a cheap ball, plastic, book, 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 and together you build up a story. And some clients, they want to ping pong with a bowling ball. That doesn't work. So I think it's really about sort of figuring out the intention that they have. Why? Why are they doing that? And that can be different than my intention, but as long as there is an overlap, we can make it happen. Yeah. And you have to push it. You have to be the sort of voluntary prisoner of your own idea. You know what I mean? It's really, I think everybody was always really like, okay, how does it feel like? How does it look like? I want to see it. I want to be there. I want to, you know, you have to be a bit sort of focused, because there are 5,000 reasons that what I showed you would not be possible. Eh? And there are only 5 reasons why it is possible. So you have to balance it out. That's the tricky part. Yeah. Please. The energy balance, yeah.
Yeah, in the end. So again, it's very beautiful, and even the energy balance is tricky. Can you explain us a bit?
Yeah.
How does it work? Maybe it's more like for the microorganisms, you have to find a way to feed them.
Yeah. No, it's a good question, because like the anthills, they think like a circle. They think circular. So in 2008, we worked on the design of one of the first sustainable dance floors. And that was really interesting, because when people are dancing in a club, they're moving, And there was an idea of a couple of entrepreneurs in Rotterdam who had this idea, and they came to me, can you make it? We're like, okay, well why not? So we made a floor which 8 or 9 millimeters pushes, and therefore generates power, 20-25 watts per module. So you could actually generate energy. From that moment, after we made that floor, we could never make an installation and not ask ourselves that question. Because before that, we didn't even think about it. We're like, yeah, just electricity, you take it out of a plug. That's the first time we were like, hey, but actually how much power are we using, you know? Like, and so for example, the opening of the Dijk project was, so the minister and the screens and the LED and the cables and the microphone were powered by the windvogel, by the energy harvesting kites, full circle. So we became a bit obsessed with trying to make that energy neutral. Energy neutral is the first step, and it's quite doable. The next, of course, is that you say material neutral, or that you also incorporate the shipping of the material to the Oh, you can be as puristic as you want, but I think the step of energy neutral, yes, and the next step is that you really start to look at the materials, you know, this glow-in-the-dark material of the Van Gogh pile. Where is that material coming from? What kind of mines in Africa are they, but then again, I think you should think about it, you should take in consideration, but don't, how do you say it? Don't try to do everything 100% correct the right way. I think step one is making that it works, and then step by step you try to improve. But for example, smog-free tower is 1100 watts, which is like a water boiler use, solar panel. It's easy. And personally, I like the projects the most which sort of give or generate energy, like the kites. And like the algae, yeah, we just give them a little bit of B12 and a little bit of light. It's very little. And they grow exponential. They don't need that much. It's more, I think, the first year or two that you spend a lot of time and energy in it. You know, that's the biggest push you give. Yeah. But it's a good question. And for example, it was funny, I was reading this in the airplane on my way here. You have a lady from Royal College of Art, and she made a water bottle. And she made water bottles are a big problem with the landfill and the waste. And she made a bottle out of algae, red algae. And they have a specific behavior that when the algae are in connection with water, it's a solid. It's like a stiff material. But the moment the water is gone, it loses its connection and it deteriorates, which is great. So you have the bottle, you drink it. When there's no water, it deteriorates. It sort of becomes more like a powder. I think that kind of thinking is really the future. Yeah, it's really powerful. It's in the beginning, but it's really powerful. Yeah. You're welcome. And I want the ring back, guys? Oh, yeah. Kees, are they trustworthy here? Yeah. Okay. Come on, we have some time for one or two questions. So. Yeah, please. Yeah, you can run and then give the mic. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was pretty cool.
Super.
Yeah, I would like to ask you about your design process, like how you go ahead. So obviously no client will tell you go for half a day and carry stones like in your studio and tell me what you find.
No,
so
they don't.
how do you, like when you receive like a brief or you have like some question, like how do you break it down into like its core components and say, okay, this is what I have to think, or like, do you have like a standard process or is it different every time? Like how does it work?
That's a really good question because it's very different every time. So sometimes we have like a ministry or a private collector or a museum or a property developer like Swire, and they ask us a question. But it's not really a question, it's more like a hint. So as a metaphor, they say, we want grass, or think about grass, but actually what they say is, we want something green. So you have to translate it, you have to interpretate it, you have to mutate it, you have to add meaning and value to it, because they don't know. They don't know, that's why they come to you. And that's a process, so you have to say, okay guys, we're not investing in product, but we're investing in process. And it's a ping pong. 40% of the project that we do, we self-commission ourselves. Smog-free project, I was my client. I was my own client the first year because everybody said, you're crazy, it cannot be done. And now we get calls from everywhere, like, please more, more, more. So we take the profit that we make and we invest it in our own ideas. So we get the good people and we make it. And since 2 weeks, I have a new category, a third category, and these are dead clients. It's very interesting. So we got a call from family of Ray Anderson. He was the founder of Interface, the carpet manufacturer. One of the first CEOs in America who in 1995 were talking about cradle to cradle, when at that time everything which was green and sustainable was considered like tree huggers, like crazy people you should stay away from. That changed completely, but and he was fascinated with highways, etc. To make a long story short, and in his will, he died 2 or 3 years ago. He said, "I want a smart highway, a sustainable highway like the Van Gogh path, designed by people like Roosegaarde," and he put this in his will. So his family called us a couple of weeks ago, like, "Hey, we opened up his will, and yeah, we have a project for you." So we have now a project and the client is dead, which is sort of interesting. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't know yet. Yeah. No, but it's a journey, because when you do something new, you always start as an amateur. And this is very important to know. When I can say now I'm an expert in smog. I read the books, I talked with the people, I've been thinking about it. But when I started 3 years ago, I was an amateur. You don't know, and you learn by doing. I think to bring the client with them, to chop it up into phases, and step by step trying to bring that journey to a concrete result, that, if you do that well, gives freedom to experiment. And in architecture, that's really difficult, to make a building like this. Like this. That's a ping pong. But yeah, I think the fact that we are here in this building proves that it's possible. Yeah. So, but it's a relationship. That's maybe the best way to describe it. Yeah. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Please.
Last question.
Yeah. Wait. Run. Yeah. I'm sorry. Here. Yeah. Sorry, I'm teasing you. Yeah. Are you aware of a bit of the Dutch humor? It's always raw, very direct, but we don't mean harm.
Well, thank you very much for your
You're
inspiration
welcome. Yeah.
speech. My question is, what are the challenges that you experience to implement those new material or some innovative materials into the public spaces? Like, I can imagine the challenge could evolve from people's mindset or people or the practical challenges, but I was wondering if you can share some of the anecdote.
Yeah, no, it's a really good. That's also the question which sort of wakes me up early in the morning, because there's so much possible. These are just some examples, but I think all of you guys, there's so much possible, and we're not doing it, or step by step, baby steps. And sometimes I question myself, am I not doing it well? Am I not explaining it well? Is it not clear enough? Is it like blah, 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 is it me? Is it you? Are they stupid? Am I stupid? I don't know. I think it's more fundamental. I think we live in a world where we live in an old economy, which is about money and time. And we want a new economy, which is about clean air, clean water, and clean energy. But how do we validate that? What is the price of clean air? You tell me. What's the price of clean air? What is it worthwhile that children can play outside and not be polluted? So we're sort of in this transition of wanting new values, but still defining them in an old way. Yes? Maybe that's the best way to explain it. And so we are sort of finding the cracks in the wall, like squeezing our way in it to realize it, but we're still the exception. And I want to be the new standard. So for example, the fact that a Dutch government says all big highways should be energy neutral in 2030 gives a platform for innovation that other designers like you or engineers or professors or entrepreneurs come up with their own proposals. So the designer should inspire the new standard, government should be open and invest in it, learn from it, make a mistake, experiment. But I would love to live in a world where I don't have any children now, but that my grandchildren, far from now, ask like, hey, Grandpa, what did you do when you were young? And then I said, yeah, we built these smog-free towers which suck up polluted air and pollution. And then the child would ask, what is pollution? You know, like. But until then, we still have a lot of work to do. And yeah, that's the journey. All right. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Yeah.